Pretty nice little dip for that stock. Okay. The one thing, and we'll look at this on the chart, daily bearish engulfing candle. A couple weeks ago, we saw this candle. I said this is likely a long-term top on NVIDIA, and so far that has been dead on. We'll continue to follow it. Next up, SMCI files to sell 2 million shares. So again, that's why the stock is cratering today. It's down about 10% pre-market. You're going to see bounces. We'll look at the technicals on that chart and see exactly where to expect bounces. But ultimately, you guys know, I still think it's going lower. You're just going to get good bounce opportunities along the way. Just like yesterday, it was very active as well. Bitcoin falls sharply as risk off begins. So this is the kicker, guys. One of my thesis pain. All right, so we'll look into that, but that's one of the points of why I was skeptical of the Bitcoin move here. By the way, I'm still a huge long-term bull on Bitcoin, but I'm also a shorter-term trader. Always remember that, folks. I'm going long, I'm going short, I'm going long. Heck, I did like 20 day trades yesterday. And again, it's just being in and being out by reading the charts and making money. Lastly, Federal Reserve begins its 2-day meeting. Announcement is tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern time. Don't forget, guys, I will be live right here. You'll see it on YouTube's Verified Investing. You'll see it on Twitter. I will be live for that announcement. We'll be trading it live here. I'm hoping to draw Dr. B in here as well to trade with me and go over the action that we're seeing, go over the charts, educate you guys on how to watch for signals about where the market and stocks are going. Okay, let's get right into the action here on the charts. First and foremost, let's start with the NASDAQ pre-market here. This is the NASDAQ 100. And again, this is where we closed yesterday, right? So yesterday we closed here. The markets were kind of fading. We had this pretty sharp dip early on. We are seeing a little bit of resurgence. So again, buy the dippers are still alive and well. And I want to make this clear. Markets isn't working. I'm just throwing in the towel on everything. That's how bottoms are created. So always remember that, folks, is that early on when a bull market changes to a bearish move, the buy the dippers will give you bounces to play. It's at the end when you see the panic, when the blood is in the streets, as the Wall Street term goes, that's when you're a buyer. In any case, we're getting a little bounce here in the NASDAQ 100. Just flipping back to the daily chart of the NASDAQ here, guys. I hope you guys have really been learning the confirmation signal because it has literally played out perfectly in this chart. And what I mean by that again is we didn't confirm. Here's where we confirmed, retrace to the scene of the crime, and now we're trading down here again, and you can see us starting to roll over. Now again, just remember, you're going to get bounces. Like here's a big gap fill right here. If we come down here, I would expect a bounce there, and then we'll probably make a move lower to another level. There's a big level right here, and again, my lines aren't going to be perfectly straight, but there'll be levels along the way with buy the dippers stepping up. In addition, analysts don't go from being uber bullish on mainstream media or even on social media to where all of a sudden they panic, right? They panic at the end of moves. They're like, literally, most analysts are just as bad as the beginner investor. They get bullish at the top. And by the way, think about this. Think about all the upgrades in price targets you were, needless to say, it was significant volume. That is a signal. Again, as a technician, all we have to go on is what the charts are telling us. And again, it's not up to us to say, oh, that's a top or that's a top. We have to let the chart tell us. Now, again, is it perfect? Is it always going to be a top? No. As I said to you, it fails if we ever close right above there. But as of now, it hasn't failed, so you go with it. It doesn't matter what your heart or your feelings tell you or your gut. Those don't matter in trading. I've tried that method, and I lose. So you got to the only edge I have in the market in terms of trading is when I literally look at the candle and I say, well, what does that mean in TA? Just what's the definition? What does it tell me? And that's what it tells me, which again puts me in a position to say, until proven otherwise, that's your top on NVIDIA. Now, look at what's happened. What type of pattern is this, guys? Down? What type of pattern is that? So again, I've taught you guys bear flag patterns. So to me, this looks awfully like a bearish pattern, right? That's about to break to the next level of support, which by the way, you'll have a lot of support right here around, it looks like around 820, give or take. And then there's a ton, I mean, down here, this gap fill down here will be massive. But again, in the short term anyways, I'm looking at some support on this chart around, really it looks like, yeah, there's a gap fill at 824 and then a major support around 808. So in this vicinity, useful. Sometimes they don't align, but you're looking to see if it does align. So I'm going to take the first initial move here, drag the fibs all the way up, and we look for where that next level is. Interestingly enough, pre-market, we're around 895. Look at where the 382 Fibonacci retrace is right now. Here's your 382. It's literally maybe at 890 to 895 right there. That is interesting, all right? That could tell us that we're kind of going to get a bounce at the open today. Don't know, but we'll watch to see. Secondarily, your 50% retrace is very close to this gap fill here. And here's your 618. 618 has a little bit of support right there. But again, these again would be generally where you're going to be looking for technical supports in those vicinities. All right, next up, guys, let's continue on through here. I did want to show Google yesterday. Remember, Google, potentially Apple was going to use their AI, their Gemini AI system for their phones. Look at what Google did yesterday. I love this because it's an example of the power of gap fills. Here's a gap fill. We had a gap here, and then we opened all the way down here. I believe I've talked about it just in the previous couple days, right? We've talked about how Sunday night's weekly close was below that key level. The previous week, it tried to break above that. Both weeks during the week, we were above 69.2, which again, guys, for those of you that don't know, that's the key high approximately within a couple dollars from the 2021 high. So that to me has now become a sticking point. So even though we were above 70, you have to be very careful. And I just like to point this out, guys, is that when we were above 70, and I mentioned this, we talk about my famous whippersnapper comment, but there were so many people out there, so many of these big supposed great minds in the financial industry, on Financial X and so forth, that were like, oh, we're above 70, this is the bear case is dead, da-da-da. And you know what it reminded me of is when we broke 65 back here and we were above here and then we collapsed. And one of the things I showed you last week, and again, by the way, preempt this by saying I still think Bitcoin's going a lot higher. It's just, it was due for a pullback. The chart's the discipline saying that unless it gets here, I probably won't be going long. Now, if it gets there, will I go long? Probably. I can't guarantee it. I have to reevaluate in real time when it gets there. But you guys are getting my point here. And now, wouldn't it be interesting if you almost get a little head and shoulders pattern here if we did bounce up? And again, I would almost say, what's the distance between here and here? It almost looks like a perfect symmetrical or even 50% secondary move to the downside. But again, for me, this area here to here, this area right in here, basically around, give or take a couple thousand from 50,000, that is my general downside target. Now, is it possible that it never gets there, like I said? Sure. That's the way it is. In trading and investing, there's no definitives. There's nothing that's guaranteed. There's nothing written in stone. All you can do is do your best to read the charts and give yourself an edge. And will you miss trades? Yeah, I've missed millions of trades. But it's all about how many do I get. And when I get them, am I disciplined enough to buy at the levels and unload them and take consistent profits? The answer is yes, and that's why I've been around doing this since 2007 when I started InTheMoneyStocks.com. All right, let's follow me over here. We're back up over here. I appreciate that from the guys here to get that all like this, probably right into support, or it gets that next leg to the upside. Okay. Next up, let's talk about oil. Then we'll touch on natural gas. Oil, guys, I've been dead on this. If there's a call that I've been nailing, it was talking about the potential breakout here. We saw it not confirm, not confirm. Once it confirmed, now it's on its merry march. Right now, we're trading at $82.30. I've been steadfast saying that this is your target zone right up here at around the 85 level. So again, I'd still be looking for 85 here on the charts. And again, I think that could hit really this week even. And again, it's not $2.70, 65 cents is not a long way to go. Lastly, let's quickly just touch on natural gas here, guys. Nat gas, I continue to be long with members at my service. And again, we're so far in the money after rebuying on this dip. Remember how we've traded this. And again, I love showing this because it shows that you don't have to be greedy. In fact, greed actually is not good. So if you watch the old movie Wall Street, the Michael Douglas character says greed is good. Actually, in the markets, it's not. It gets you to become emotional. You get too greedy and you look for too much. And so when we were in this earlier, if we remember, we were in from here and coming up into this level, I said, you know what? I'm good with that. I'm good with that move up. And it's going to hit resistance. We unload.